We're counting down the 6 most disturbing discoveries scientists have made underwater. From ancient mass graves hidden in remote mountain lakes to inexplicable machines that rewrite the story of civilization, let's begin the countdown with number 6. At nearly 16,500 feet above sea level, Rupkund Lake sits frozen for most of the year. Its waters conceal a scene that has defied explanation for generations. Up to 800 human skeletons, some with flesh and hair still preserved, scattered across the shallow bed. Early investigators assumed a single disaster: an army lost, a pilgrimage gone wrong, a sudden storm. But when scientists began analyzing ancient DNA and radiocarbon in 2019, the story fractured. The remains belong to 3 distinct ancestry groups, including people from South Asia, Crete, and even Southeast Asia. The deaths didn't happen all at once. Radiocarbon dating revealed 2 major waves separated by nearly 1,000 years. No weapons, no signs of violence, no epidemic. Just healthy individuals from distant lands drawn to the same remote lake centuries apart. The evidence forced researchers to abandon every previous theory. Even the most basic historical narratives can be wrong. In 2011, a Swedish expedition scanning the floor of the Baltic Sea caught something unexpected on sonar. At a depth of 300 feet, the instruments outlined a massive, perfectly circular structure, 60 meters across, its edges sharply defined against the muddy seabed. The team, led by OceanX, sent divers and remotely operated vehicles to investigate. As they approached the formation, equipment began to fail. Lights flickered and died. Compasses spun wildly. Radios cut out mid-sentence. The closer the divers got, the worse the interference became, forcing them to retreat. Official explanations have ranged from glacial rock to a natural mound, but the geometry remains difficult to explain. No other known formation in the region shows such symmetry or causes recurring electronic disruption. Scientists requested more data, but no high-resolution mapping or peer-reviewed survey has settled the debate. The anomaly sits in silence, resisting easy classification, an object that by all textbook accounts should not exist beneath these waters. In the coldest reaches of the Arctic, where the sea ice fractures and tides churn beneath the surface, an unseen process unfolds. As seawater freezes, it squeezes out salt, creating dense, supercooled brine. This brine, heavier than the water around it, plunges downward in thin streams. When it hits the ocean floor, it freezes everything in its path, forming icy tubes that snake toward the seabed. Scientists call them brinicles, saltwater icicles that can stretch for dozens of meters. In 2011, a team risked their equipment to capture the first high-definition footage of a brinicle forming. Their time-lapse cameras recorded an ice finger creeping downward, trapping sea stars and urchins in a sheath of instant death. The effect is both mesmerizing and horrifying. Entire patches of benthic life frozen in place, as if time itself had stopped. Cameraman Hugh Miller described the moment as watching death descend in slow motion. For researchers, the existence of brinicles shattered assumptions about how freezing works underwater. Even the most basic laws of physics can turn deadly in the deep sea, revealing natural forces that science had never fully imagined. At 20,000 feet below the surface, sunlight never arrives. For generations, scientists believed this darkness was absolute, not just the absence of light, but the absence of the processes life depends on. Oxygen, according to every textbook, could only be made by plants or algae capturing energy from the sun. In 2024, that certainty collapsed. Sensors aboard a Schmidt Ocean Institute vessel registered sudden bursts of oxygen near clusters of polymetallic nodules, lumpy rocks rich in manganese and iron, scattered across the abyssal plain. The readings seemed impossible. The team halted their work, recalibrated every instrument, and repeated the tests. The oxygen spikes persisted. There was no sunlight, no photosynthetic life, and no apparent chemical leak from the ship. Only the nodules, quietly generating oxygen through electrochemical reactions in the crushing dark. These nodules acted as natural geobatteries, splitting water molecules and releasing oxygen into the sediment and water. Around them, complex animals, worms, crustaceans, even soft-bodied creatures thrived in pockets of life that should not exist. The implications are staggering. Oxygen, the foundation for complex life, does not require sunlight after all. It can appear in total darkness, powered by the planet's own chemistry. Every assumption about where life can exist and how it began must now be reconsidered. The deep sea, once thought barren, may have been the cradle of life itself. In the year 2000, a team led by French archaeologist Franck Goddio set out to survey the waters near Alexandria. Their sonar scans traced the faint outlines of stone blocks and columns beneath the Mediterranean mud. What they found was Heraklion, a city lost to history, submerged for nearly 1,400 years, and almost erased from human memory. The first artifact to break the surface was a monumental statue caked in black silt but perfectly preserved. Soon, entire temples emerged, their columns standing as they had in the days of the pharaohs. Statues of gods, some weighing over 5 tons, lay scattered where the city had fallen. Gold coins, ceremonial boats, and even jewelry rested undisturbed in the sand. Hieroglyphic inscriptions remained sharp and legible, as if written only decades before. Yet for all its grandeur, Heraklion was a ghost in the written record. Ancient texts mention the city only in passing, if at all. There are no surviving chronicles of its daily life, no detailed accounts of its destruction. Historians knew it as a rumor, a port that might have existed, overshadowed by nearby Alexandria. The archaeological diaries from the excavation describe the shock of finding a city of this scale, complete with trade goods from Greece, Phoenicia, and Egypt, almost entirely absent from the scrolls and annals of its time. Heraklion had been one of the most important trade hubs in the ancient world, a place where cultures met and commerce flourished. Its disappearance was so complete that for centuries scholars believed it was a myth. The city's rediscovery forces a reckoning with the fragility of written history. Stone and silt preserved what paper and memory could not. The silence of Heraklion in the historical record is a warning. Entire civilizations can vanish, their stories nearly erased, waiting for the sea to give them back. In 1901, a team of sponge divers searching for treasure off the Greek island of Antikythera brought up something no one could explain. Among the broken statues and amphorae, they found a lump of bronze, green with corrosion, packed with what looked like gears and dials. The object was so out of place that early scholars dismissed it as a fluke, a jumble of clockwork from a later shipwreck, or a hoax. Ancient Greece, according to every textbook, had no machines like this. Technology that used gears for calculation, especially with this level of precision, was supposed to have been invented in the 1600s, not in 100 BC. For decades, the fragments sat in museums, their purpose debated but never settled. It wasn't until 2006 that the real story began to surface. Scientists at X-Tech Systems in the UK scanned the corroded bronze with high-resolution CT imaging. The scans revealed a hidden world, more than 30 interlocking gear wheels, each cut with mathematical accuracy. Greek inscriptions described planetary cycles, lunar phases, and even the timing of Olympic Games. The device could predict eclipses, chart the motion of the sun and moon, and model the irregular orbit of the moon with a differential gear, something thought impossible before the industrial age. Historians and engineers were forced to confront the evidence. The Antikythera mechanism is an analog computer, built by hand over 2,000 years ago. Its complexity predates anything similar by 15 centuries. There is no record of how the knowledge to build it was acquired or why it vanished. The gears are so precise that modern watchmakers have struggled to reproduce them. Every assumption about the limits of ancient technology collapsed in the face of this machine. The Antikythera mechanism stands as proof that history is not a straight line. It is a reminder that what we call progress is often just the recovery of knowledge lost to the depths, waiting to be found again. From the ancient graveyard at Rupkund Lake to the impossible Antikythera mechanism, these 6 disturbing underwater discoveries have repeatedly forced scientists to rewrite what they thought they knew. Across every entry, the pattern is clear. The ocean and its hidden places don't just add details to our history, they overturn fundamental assumptions. Some findings, like the dark oxygen produced in abyssal depths, challenge the very rules of biology, while others, like Heraclean and the Antikythera mechanism, prove entire chapters of human achievement were lost beneath the waves. Every item on this list qualified because it didn't just puzzle researchers, it disrupted science's core beliefs about life, technology, and civilization. The most shocking entries are those that show how much we still don't know, even about our own past. In the end, these underwater mysteries remind us that with more than 70% of the planet still unexplored, every dive has the potential to upend our understanding of the world and of ourselves.